Here is an extract from part 1, The Children of Pisces, The Two Pendants. This is chapter 17, Crocodile River in Africa. They are on the safari. They're about to end the safari and something really bad is going to happen. So I'm going to read this chapter for you so that you have a sneak preview of what book 1 is all about. 17, Crocodile River, Africa. Considering the amount of days they had spent at Kruger Park, they had hardly seen anything. The time had passed quickly, and they had been preoccupied with the lions and the hunters. Ed decided that now it was time to finally complete the safari. That's if nothing else crops up, he said, laughing. Tammy and Watanas laughed with him. They packed their jeep and set off once again to view the rest of Kruger National Park. They travelled and camped for 5 days, viewing whatever game they could find. They saw the lions again and the herd of elephants they had used to lure the hunters into their trap. They saw one cheetah as it hunted and caught an antelope. It had been an amazing sight. Tammy felt sad for the antelope, despite the knowledge that the cheetah couldn't survive without it. However, the scene made her realise something about herself that she hadn't thought of before. I have never eaten meat, even on the rare occasion it has been put in front of me, as if I always knew how wrong it was. I would never even try it to see if I liked it, she declared, watching the antelope get ripped apart. I may well be a vegetarian myself one day, but we adults find it hard to let go of what we considered special once upon a time. And now it is a rare privilege, making it even more special to us, and hence making us want it more. I am a victim of this myself, I have to admit, Ed said with a shrug. I don't know how you can do it. I could never eat meat. I don't need to, and so I won't. Jax is the same. Fair enough, Ed said with a chuckle. Come on, we're almost there. Here it is, Ed said a couple of hours later. Crocodile River, Mpumalanga, Watanas said, dropping them off. He had agreed to drive the jeep, taking Sirocco and Jet with him, while Ed took Tammy along the river on an old-fashioned boat. They were to meet up at the end of the day. It was soon obvious why the river was called Crocodile River. The water didn't look very clean, and it was full to the brim with crocodiles. They weren't the only ones on the boat. Also travelling was a man, his wife, and their 3 children aged 1, 3 and 5, who were all visiting from India. 2 obviously rich male students from Hawaii who were presently travelling the world, a husband and wife from France, and a woman from Florida with her 4-year-old boy. And the 2 male crew members were also on board. Tammy thoroughly enjoyed the first hour of the cruise. Everyone on the boat held onto the rails and watched the numerous hippos and crocodiles both in the water and on the side of the riverbank. They all laughed as a hippo popped up out the water and opened his large mouth, showing a few stumpy teeth. Tammy smiled as she saw the ears and the eyes of another hippo as he hid almost completely under the water. The crocodiles swam lazily, almost as if they were floating logs. It really was a wonderful experience. The sudden outburst of laughter from the children made the adults smile, and Tammy felt an instant of awkwardness as she wondered whether she was an adult or a child. It was one of those moments when Tammy felt she didn't fit in anywhere. It was while she was pondering on this thought that the peacefulness of the cruise abruptly ended and was replaced by a sudden surge of fear. The Indian boy decided it would be fun to climb over the rails of the boat and hold on from the opposite side, partly to show off to his younger brother. His parents didn't notice what he was doing until he had actually done it. "Oh my goodness," the boy's mother screamed and raced towards her son. The scream made the boy panic and he let go of the rails. His parents watched in horror as he fell into the water. Several crocodiles heard the splash. As the boy hit the water and swam from the riverbank towards the boat, everyone on the boat froze with fear. They didn't know what they could possibly do to save him. The sides of the boat were too high for them to be able to reach over and pull him out. The crew were too scared to jump into the water, and so were the other passengers on the boat. "Do something! Help him!" the boy's mother screamed hysterically. They couldn't see the crocodiles anymore. They had disappeared under the water, heading towards the boy, who was barely able to swim and kept going under. The boy's father, thinking he could do nothing else, started to climb over the side of the boat, about to dive in next to his son. He was scared. He paused when he saw something out of the corner of his eye, followed by a loud splash. Tammy had jumped into the water and was swimming towards the boy. "Wait with us," Ed told the man, placing a reassuring arm around his shoulder and pulling him back onto the boat. "There's little you can do. She can help. She isn't just a young girl." The father didn't want to leave it up to the girl. He naturally wanted to go in and save his own son. Ed's grasp became tighter, forcing the man back onto the boat. Tammy reached the scared boy and took hold of him by his waist. "I'm going to help you," she told him. "I need you to help me to help you." The boy grabbed hold of Tammy. He was scared and confused, and she saw he was also brave. "I need you to take a deep breath because we're going to go under the water," she said. The boy nodded. He was too scared to speak, and although he didn't understand why, he was willing to do anything this girl told him to do. Anything to get out of the water and away from the crocodiles. They took a deep breath, and Tammy pulled the two of them under the water. They sank further and further until they were almost touching the bottom. Tammy had decided it was better to face the crocodiles down here, where she could make eye contact with them and see them coming. While they were on the surface, the crocodiles would only see her body, not her face. Then they would undoubtedly attack her. She held the boy close to her and looked around through the dirty water. Her pendant glowed bright red and then bright white, lighting up the water and helping her see more clearly. There were so many crocodiles. They were very close to them now. Tammy was shocked at how many there were. She could count over 30. She couldn't think about being scared. She was too busy trying to decide what to do. How she was going to get herself and the boy out of the water alive. The boy's parents and the rest of the passengers gasped in fear as Tammy and the boy disappeared underwater. They couldn't see them now and feared the crocodile had already attacked. Ed's heart sank, as he feared he would never see Tammy again. The water began to move in strange circles. Dozens of whirlpools began to form. The people watching from the boat mistook this for the crocodile's movements. Ed frowned, knowing that crocodiles didn't create such whirlpools. Tammy watched the crocodiles getting closer and closer. She concentrated very hard to make them stay away. She felt the water move around her and the boy, swirling in circles, helping her to stay away from the crocodiles and easing her towards the riverbank. The water was helping her. Tammy didn't know how, but she was grateful for it. "Don't come closer. Don't come closer," she said, over and over in her head, trying to make the crocodiles hear her. One crocodile came right up to them. The blurred, discoloured water made their cold, statue-like faces appear even more eerie. The boy hugged Tammy close when he saw the crocodile open his jaws and glide towards their face. His jaws slowly opened as if it were easy feeding here in the river, and this boy was nothing but an appetizer. The boy's eyes bulged in terror at the large white teeth coming towards him. His heart pounded and echoed in his tiny chest. He needed air and couldn't hold his breath for much longer. He needed to scream, now. Tammy, sensing the boy's distress, willed the crocodile away with all her might. The boy's fear brought out a protective streak in her she didn't know she had. And she wasn't scared at all. She looked right at the crocodile and silently willed him to turn and leave just as he got almost close enough to bite. Suddenly, at the very last minute, the crocodile snapped his jaw shut, turned and swam away. Tammy started to swim backwards, pulling the boy with her and making the water move in whirlpools, creating a gap of air between them and the water, allowing herself and the boy to gasp a few breaths of air. "You can take a breath," she whispered to the boy. He looked puzzled but took a breath anyway, and then another. It was hard work controlling the crocodiles and the water and the air bubble, but she couldn't hold it for long, but enough to help the boy for now. If she had to, Tammy could have held her breath this entire time. She had practised well enough and her lungs worked more like those of the seals at the park than a human's. She was still heading towards the riverbank. They couldn't afford to surface. Tammy knew that the crocodiles wouldn't hear her if they couldn't see her eyes. To surface now would be suicide. The crocodiles were still all around them. Most stayed slightly away. Some kept trying to get closer. Every time one came too close, Tammy willed them away. They were confused and agitated, which made it especially dangerous for Tammy. They were nearing the bank now. The boy started to struggle. He needed air and couldn't hold his breath any longer. Tammy had been practicing holding her breath for a long time when swimming with the sea lions. She was glad of this now. She let the boy swim to the surface to catch his breath. The whirlpools in the water helped to keep the crocodiles clear of the boy as he gasped for air. Tammy stayed under the water next to him, willing the crocodiles away. "Over there!" Ed shouted and pointed to the boy as he surfaced. Everyone looked. Ed scanned the surface for Tammy. His heart sank when he saw no sign of her. The boy disappeared underwater again, leaving his parents more scared than ever. Tammy pulled the boy back under the water and started swimming backwards faster and faster. The bank was still quite a way away and the crocodiles were becoming ever more frustrated. "It is wrong to hurt us," Tammy silently told them. "You must leave us alone." The crocodiles started to understand. They were keeping their distance more now. Eventually they realised that they had to stay away. They no longer tried to attack because they knew it was useless. They couldn't hurt these people. They didn't know why, and it confused them, yet they obeyed. Tammy had a feeling something was approaching her from behind. She turned around and saw a hippo. He looked angry and confused. The hippo had sensed the confusion in the crocodiles. He was angry at having someone on his territory, causing all this confusion. Tammy looked at the hippo and told him to go away. The hippo hesitated, and then continued towards Tammy. She told him to go away again and concentrated all her will on the hippo. He stared at her, but let them pass. Tammy pulled the boy towards the bank, not far now. Tammy hugged the boy closer to her and smiled. He had done well with holding his breath. It wasn't easy when you were scared. He had trusted Tammy and done what she told him to do. The crocodiles paid no attention to Tammy and the boy now. Some stayed in the water and some got out, ready to bask in the sun for a while longer. Tammy and the boy swam to the surface and held onto the sides of the bank. They breathed heavily, trying to catch their breath. Tammy helped the boy until he was sitting on the bank and then joined him. Ed breathed a sigh of relief as he saw Tammy. It had only been a matter of minutes since the boy had fallen into the water, and yet, to everyone involved, it had felt like hours. Tammy waved at the boat and smiled with relief when she saw it turn and head towards her. Ed and the boy's father jumped off the boat and joined the pair on the bank. The boy's father grabbed hold of his son, kissing his face and checking him for any injuries. Ed put his arm around Tammy and whispered, "Well done." They were all overjoyed to see them both alive. They got back on the boat and the boy was quickly reunited with his mother. She cried as she held her son. "I thought I'd lost him," his father told Tammy, unable to hold back his tears. "I don't know how you managed to do it. I thank you with all my heart." Tammy choked up, biting her lip to stop the trembling. A lump rose in her throat, rendering her unable to speak, as the tension of the past few minutes started to weigh upon her. "That was very brave of you," Ed told her. "The boy was brave," Tammy said. "He was so brave. What is your name?" "His name is Sanish," his mother said. Sanish was in shock and couldn't speak. One of the crew members brought blankets to wrap around them. "You are a crazy girl," he said as he handed Tammy a blanket. "How did you manage to get to the bank with all those crocodiles there?" Sanish's father asked. Tammy was too tired to explain and didn't want to tell him how she willed the crocodiles away. He wouldn't understand. "I don't know. I guess I was just lucky," was all she said. "You must be tired. Sit down," Ed told her. "I think maybe we've had enough excitement for one day," said one of the crew members. "Let's head back early." The other crewman agreed. They were all shaken up from the experience, especially Sanish. He would have to go to the hospital because he was clearly suffering from shock. Tammy sat next to Ed, resting her head on his shoulder as she stared at the river. She was exhausted and shaken. It had been too close an encounter for her liking. She closed her eyes and pretended she was back at the safari park, swimming with Jax, feeling his warm smile and that warm glow she felt. When she was around him, she felt safe there. Tammy was glad to see Sirocco and Jet waiting for her when they returned from the cruise. Sanish was still in shock. He managed to give Tammy a kiss on the cheek and say goodbye when he was taken to the hospital. "We can never thank you enough for what you did," his father told Tammy. Tammy smiled as he kissed her on the cheek. Sanish's mother was too upset to speak. Instead, she grabbed Tammy and gave her a tight squeeze before walking away with her family. Ed smiled with pride at Tammy, who was walking over to Sirocco and Jet. She embraced them both and then climbed onto Sirocco's back. She rode Sirocco alongside the jeep, occasionally disappearing for a short canter. Their time in Africa was over. Ed decided that evening that they should return to Vivacity Island the following day. They made their goodbyes quickly, and Tammy felt heartbroken at having to leave. They would spend one last night with Wattinus at the Rangers' camp. "We'll be coming back regularly," Ed assured her. "I don't want to go. There's so much I haven't seen yet." "You'll see it all eventually," Ed said softly, his words offering her little consolation. As they boarded the HP, the hoverplane, Tammy could hear the animals crying out to her. She stared out of the window and watched Africa disappear. A tear rolled down her cheek, followed by another, and then another. Ed took hold of Tammy's hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. He understood how she felt. He couldn't help wondering if one day Tammy would return to Africa for good. Hope you enjoyed that, and that you ask your library to get you the book in so you can enjoy the rest. Thank you. Have a great day.